So all of the IoT communications technologies that you've seen before, whether that's a Sigfox or a LoRa, at one point needs to bring the data back to you. So there needs to be some form of communication, whether that's a 3G, a 4G network, a fixed line, point-to-point Wi-Fi, or many of the very artistic installations that have happened in agribusiness over time. There's always a need to bring the data back. So Fleet Space Technologies is an Australian space company. We're building satellites and specializing in connecting sensor networks in remote areas. To give you a bit of a view, this is the kind of size of satellites that we're launching. We launched the first 2 satellites 10 days ago. We've got 2 more launching this weekend. And as I said, they are they're dedicated to connecting sensor networks, whether that's LoRa or Zigbee or any other type of network protocol. The idea behind them is that you don't need to be within proximity of the gateways to get the data out of your network. So when you've got big pastoral properties like you're operating, say 150 kilometers away, water points that you want to measure, soil moisture that you want to measure around the water points and things like this, having this capability for cheap satellite backhaul for the data back to the homestead is what Fleet does. So what the system looks like, just to give you an idea, we currently operate LoRaWAN systems on the ground off a gateway which is this size, runs on solar panels, and talks to the sky. We can connect up to 1,000 sensors to a gateway. It uses LoRa, so the ranges that Alicia and Tessa have been talking about before, and the products and sensors that they've been using are exactly the same, which makes up for some really interesting use cases out in remote areas. What we've had on Darwin is a very small station, 6 kilometers and side to side. So range really wasn't an issue there. We've had a range of use cases that we've deployed, mainly around health and safety, a few soil moisture sensors and weather stations. But the really interesting things with the LoRa ecosystem is you can add things like smoke detectors in your sheds and panic buttons for your personnel, quad sensors where you can detect any tilts or for accidents and things like this. That works. Right. A few pictures of the installations. At the bottom there, where you can see the solar panel, that's where the gateway is. It can be installed anywhere so long as it sees the sky. And then you've got a few soil moisture sensors, top left and in the middle, the weather station, and then on the right side, smoke detectors and gate sensors. Now, we weren't as smart as the NNNCo guys, and we've deployed the gate sensors at the edge of the gate, which means that we've got 180 readings a day of gates openings and closings. I don't recommend that. Putting them on the hinge is a much smarter way. We found that the LoRa ecosystem generally is quite rich in the sensors that you get, but there's some frequency considerations that you need to take into account. Deployment of these sensors is relatively simple so long as you have the right ones. And one of the things that we wanted to deploy on there was a rain gauge. The supplier didn't know better and provided us with a rain gauge that works in the US. It doesn't work in Australia. Didn't provide us the way to change that either. So these are the things that are quite important to know, and I guess one of the learnings from Fleet is that you'd want to talk to someone that knows what they're doing. From our point of view, we're really concentrating on that satellite connectivity piece. We'd like to work with systems integrators, people that work in the agribusiness to bring those solutions to the market, but not necessarily do that ourselves. Just to give you a view of those sensors that we have deployed and some of the integrations that we've done. So we don't provide a dashboard. You've seen everybody's got a different dashboard and it's a bit of a nightmare to manage. We just feed data into systems. So we've got a few sensors deployed there. So IoT Australasia out of Cairns have been supplying a few, pardon me, my phone's ringing. That happens every time I talk. So IT Australasia out of Cairns have been supplying the weather station, the global sat group was everything about tracking, and the quad sensors. The really interesting things with those emergency scenarios or emergency use cases is that there are these kind of sensors where nothing happens for as long as possible, and then when something triggers, you want to make sure that the sensors still work. So Quad Tilt's one of those ones. It sends I'm alive signals every day, but you only ever get a real signal with a GPS location when you've actually got the quad tilt. Netvox was the gate sensors, Digital Matter. I think you've seen it already 3 times. That's the Oyster. I think there's consensus among the service providers. That's one of the better trackers. And we fed the data into the Hitachi platform, into the Pear platform, and we're looking at doing the IDS and the AgriWeb install over the next few weeks. That's about it for me. Come and have a chat with us to kind of understand more about what we do. We've got a catalogue of use cases that we've put together with our sensor partners with about, say, 35 different use cases and sensing possibilities for remote agriculture. So come and have a chat.